Pablo, good to see you. How you doing? First one, as always. Let's go. How you doing? JB, good to see you, brother. How you doing? Evening. How you been? SB, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, Miles. Good to see you. Carlos, hello, Miles of CMF. How you doing today? I'm doing great, Carlos. Good to see you as well. How you doing? Hi, Miles of CMF family. Everyone, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, Miles. Let's have another great evening, mate. Let's go, Addy. How you doing? By the way, thank you so much to everyone who has straight away liked and retweeted this live, joining into the live right now. And thank you so much to everyone on YouTube who's also liked the live as well. Good evening, Professor Miles and CMF family. Funky, good to see you as well. How you doing? Hi, Miles. How's things? Autistic things are great. How's things with you? Good to see you as well. Okay, let's do intro, disclaimer, and essentially what we're going to be talking about on tonight's live. By that time, everyone should be tuned in for the first part. Miles, Davey, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Welcome to the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, pretty much all the information you should know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. The disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And also, we do Q&As on this live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to help you out. Now, on tonight's live, we're going to be discussing about what's happening in terms of the Trump tariff policies, because we talked about it yesterday. We have some sort of an update today. We're going to be talking about the government shutdown, of essentially, are we going to be looking at the government reopening? And then we're also going to be talking about the democratic elections that essentially happened so far. Is that going to have some sort of impact on the crypto market space? We're also going to be talking about some prospective news on essentially where the market is headed in terms of essentially Bitcoin's footsteps, Ethereum's, or even XRP's footsteps. Also, some announcements in terms of partnerships to go through as well. Now, the first news we are going to be covering on tonight's live is regarding the government shutdown. Most importantly, it's still going on. Before we go through that, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the first news. Once again, thank you so much to everybody, honestly, who has straight away liked and retweeted this live if you're watching this on X right now. And thank you so much to everybody who's also, if you're watching this on YouTube, who's liked the live straight away as well. If you haven't seen CMF members, smash the like buttons and smash the retweet buttons and put comments outside the live also. Now, let's see where we're at inside the comment section. We were here. Hi, Miles of CMF family. Let's go for Facts News. Let's go, Carl. How you doing? Hey, Miles. T, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, Miles. How are you doing? I'm doing great. Callie, good to see you as well. Hi, Miles of CMF. Stormy, good to see you as well. How you doing? Now, government shutdown still going on, and we do need the government to reopen. But obviously, we do need those votes from those Democrats coming in. So, 36 days of shutdown in the US. The crypto bill threatens to derail for good. Essentially is what's going on. The US government is going through the longest shutdown in its history with 36 days of blockage. This unprecedented situation directly essentially threatens the adoption of crucial cryptocurrency legislations. The result of the midterm elections further complicates negotiations. The US federal government reached a historical milestone essentially yesterday with 36 days of parallels, essentially smashing the previous records of 35 days of government shutdown. This unprecedented situation plunges the administration into chaos and directly threatens the future of crypto regulations, is what they're saying. Lawmakers remain divided over federal budget funding, and nothing indicates a quick resolution between the Republicans and the Democrats. The Democrats seem ready to give around essentially this week. Many anticipated a government funding vote without conditions on health insurance premiums. but essentially the elections changed the game. The results for exceed polling forecast of strengthening the Democrats' position in Congress. The new balance of power complicates negotiations and delays any budget agreements. The timeline initially planned for crypto regulations is gradually essentially moving or collapsing, is what they're saying. Summer, the executive director of Blockchain Association, sounded the alarm also. She confirms that the shutdown's extension significantly increases the risk of postponement to 2026. Public policy experts in this sector unanimously share this growing, essentially, situation. The problem goes far beyond these simple scheduling issues. Many government specialists capable of drafting these complex texts are currently on forced leave. Without their essentially technical analysis of this of the crypto regulation legislations related to market structure, the administration's paralysis creates a major bottleneck for the essentially entire legislative process. Patrick Witt, the executive director of the President's Council of Advisors on Digital Assets, maintains a cautious optimism at Ripple Swell essentially conference. He reaffirmed Donald Trump's position. The US president still wishes to sign a final text by the end of 2025, despite the growing obstacles. Even in the Ripple Swell event, they mentioned the Clarity Act multiple times, and they said that they do still expect Trump to be signing the Clarity Act before essentially going to 2026. Witt has been making frequent trips to Capitol Hill in recent weeks. He regularly meets Republicans and Democrat senators to move things forward. His political agenda intensifies even as the federal administration remains completely paralyzed. He considers that the shutdown presents some unexpected advantages for his lobbying work. We've had the chance to really engage with officers, staffs, and members on the substance of this bill, which is the Clarity Bill. He also essentially, the administration frees up legislators' time. These in-depth exchanges would have been difficult under essentially normal circumstances, overwhelmed by multiple competing essential priorities in Congress. Apparently, a government shutdown could work out in our favor in terms of the crypto space, also, not just negatively. Industry professionals show essentially opinions. One first public policy expert believes that the improvements to the market structure bill by Thanksgiving remains possible. A second is much more essentially reserved. The adoption of comprehensive legislations before the end of 2025 seems unlikely to him. He rather expects a vote by both chambers of Congress during 2026. All of the issues we're having right now inside the crypto space is because of Democrats. Gerson Chin, the CEO of BitGet Exchange, offers a more essentially analysis of the situation. We view the record 36-day shutdown of the US administrations as a temporary setback that highlights the value of resilient and decentralized systems. For her, this crisis could ultimately create momentum in favor of reform by highlighting the inefficiencies of traditional financial system. The political context dangerously complicates the legislative equation. Senator Thorne essentially reminded recently that the window of opportunity will close by February 2026, essentially at the latest. After this critical essentially deadline, the midterm elections will turn Congress into an electional essentially arena. Any essentially consensus will then become almost impossible to achieve. This harsh reality explains the urgency displayed by Republicans. John, the chairman of the Senate Agriculture Committee, is actively negotiating with essentially his Democratic counterparts. His objective also remains clear: to present very soon a baptism bill acceptable to all. The Senate Banking Committee has also initiated promising talks in recent weeks. Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, recently made a street tour in Washington. He met several key lawmakers essentially from both parties. His findings reignite hope within the industry. The Senate reportedly found common ground on about 90% of the crypto-related issues. That, at least, is something extremely positive. That about 90% in terms of the Clarity Act is pretty much done. There's been a common ground between Republicans and Democrats for the crypto bill, the Clarity Bill, but 90% is done. The unexpected coverage essentially could speed up the legislative process if the shutdown ends quickly. Meanwhile, the SEC is operating with drastically reduced staff. The regulatory agency had to postpone reviewing several crypto ETF applications. 16 requests remain pending, essentially involving major assets like XRP. The industry essentially largely awaits the end of this administrative paralysis to unblock these procedures. So, The Democratic Party is still obviously ruining everything in the United States, as they normally do. It's just their job, 9 to 5, just to ruin American lives. However, with the Democrats ruining American lives, as they usually do, there seems to be some sort of common ground found inside of this whole government shutdown for a crypto clarity bill. 90% common ground found between Democrats and Republicans, and that's saying a lot, because the Republicans and Democrats never get along. Well, Democrats don't get along with anybody, to be fairly honest. But 90% is done. Just 10% more to go until we have a Clarity Act, which is brilliant to see. Now, regarding the Trump essentially Supreme Court situation that's going on as well, regarding tariffs, which we talked about yesterday, where a judge is thinking about essentially, reversing everything Trump has done in terms of tariffs and even refunding all the money that's entered the United States. The billions and hundreds of billions of dollars that have essentially entered the United States in terms of investment because of Trump's tariff plans to boost American economy. Well, an American judge, is thinking about refunding that to all the countries, all to the companies, which means all the money that Trump brought in for Americans will go away. And again, this is an American judge. So Polymarket, essentially the platform that people bet on in terms of politics or sports or anything to do with that matter, tends to sometimes get it correct on what's going to be happening in terms of outcome, but it is just people guessing in that matter. Polymarket recorded a sharp drop in the probabilities in favor of Donald Trump as the Supreme Court examines the legality of his tariff powers. This turnaround highlights two dynamics: the possible rollback of presidential authorities over foreign trade and the growing role of decentralized platforms as centers of political anticipation. A case where constitutional law, economic strategy, and technology essentially under the watchful eyes of judges and investors. The silent battle over American presidential powers is now being played on essentially the prediction platforms, while the American justice system has declared the tariffs illegal. While the Supreme Court examines the constitutional grounds of the tariffs imposed by Donald Trump via the 1977 Act that Trump is using, the markets anticipate an unfavorable verdict for the president. Today, the regulated American platform, essentially Kalski, showed only 29% probability that the Supreme Court will rule in favor of the president, a drop of 28 points in a single day. On Polymarket, a decentralized platform based on blockchain whose contracts are settled in USDC, the confidence level is even lower at 25%. The total essentially volume traded on both platforms has exceeded $1.3 million, reflecting tangible interest and nervousness around this case, because this could have a weigh-in inside the crypto market space. This dynamic reflects a shared reading between traditional investors and crypto users, who adjust their positions in response to what they perceive as a turnaround. These market movements are closely linked to essentially traders' reassessments of the judicial context. Since the Supreme Court agreed to take up the case in September, positions have tightened around a central point: the president's ability to invoke the 1977 emergency law, International Emergency Economic Powers Act, to impose tariffs without congressional approvals. So in terms of what Trump has done, it's actually legal. First, he's the president of the United States. Second, he's done it in a legal manner, essentially using the Act of 1977, which is the essentially International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which he can use. During the oral hearing held essentially by the United States essentially Supreme Court, several conservative judges expressed marked skepticism about the position essentially defended by Trump's administration. Indeed, Judge Neal warned of the risk of creating a one-way ratchet which would permanently tilt the institutional balance in favor of the executive branch. Amy Coney, also appointed by Trump, questioned government representatives on the logic of targeting countries like France or Spain within a framework supposed to address an emergency situation. Finally, the Chief Justice of Court, John Roberts, remained that the tariffs as a form of tax have historically been under Congress's jurisdiction. These statements reveal a potential challenge to use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to justify unilateral trade policies. The judges appear concerned about the executive power drift, which, if confirmed in this case, could assume essentially budgetary without parliamentary checks. If the courts were to restrict the current interpretation of the the act of the Emergency Act that Trump is using, 1977 one, the consequences would be multiple. From a legal perspective, it would set a precedent limiting the American president's room for maneuver or international trade issues, which is the worst thing that can happen. From an economic standpoint, it could reduce uncertainty related to essentially tariff policies, often a source of market volatility, and for cryptos traditionally sensitive to geopolitical tensions, this could ultimately translate into fear-erupt movements linked to unwritten law, essentially announcements, and thus a reduced perception of Bitcoin as a safe haven, with a correlation to gold reaching 0.85 essentially against this type of risk. So everything that Trump has achieved through tariffs, the billions of dollars he's poured into the US economy, the amount of companies that decided to build factories inside the United States just to get away from tariffs. I mean, Rolls-Royce even decided to open up a factory in the United States just so they don't have to pay the tariffs, which will create more jobs in the United States. Then they weren't the only car manufacturer. The list goes on in terms of car manufacturers, tech companies, and so on, that all decided to build factories in the United States because of Trump's tariff policies that created American jobs. But the judges don't care about any of that. All they care about is they hate Trump. You know what's funny about these liberal judges? All of them were pretty damn fine with the idea of Obama sending billions of dollars to the Iranian government. That was perfectly fine. But Trump using tariffs to create more American jobs, bring more money, more investments into the United States, that is a big no. But sending essentially financing to an illicit government that causes terror around the world, that is pretty much fine for liberal judges to send billions of dollars to the Iranian government under Obama's authority. That was pretty much damn fine. But Trump creating jobs in the United States, bringing billions of dollars into the United States in terms of investments and creating American jobs, no, that's a big no for all the judges. Just the type of world we live in. Now, SBI is what we'll talk about next on tonight's live. We'll come back to politics, but for now, that could have some sort of way inside the crypto market space. We have to see what essentially comes to the end of this whole Supreme Judge Court essentially action scenario. Is it going to have an impact on the crypto market space? It most likely will. Is it going to be a negative or positive? Most likely it's going to be negative, depending on what the results are going to be. Slim chance is going to be positive. But again, it is just the Democrats, as usual, wasting everybody's damn time. That's just what they're good at. SBI is what we're going to talk about next on tonight's live. Before we talk about SBI, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there, and then we go straight into the next news. So let's see where we're at inside the comment section. We were at here, I think. Yep. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Manny, good to see you doing. How you been? Miles, how low can these cryptos go before it all turns around to the upside? They can go pretty damn low. Bitcoin's lowest point could be around 90 to 89. I don't think Bitcoin will go anywhere below 89,000. I don't think it will, because there's a limit they can push the market space to. And let's not forget, again, we do have Clarity Act coming. So there's a limit they can push the market to create fear. Institutions can push the market up to a certain extent where it's on fear, which now it is. It's on extreme fear in terms of the greed and index essential reader. It's on extreme fear. If they push the market too far down, then it goes from fear to discounts, which means the retail section that were fearing the market are now actually buying it. Also, people who haven't entered the crypto market space before will probably enter in terms of the retail section. So there will be more retail buyers if they push the market too far down, because you push the market down up to a certain extent where it's extreme fear. You go beyond that, it goes to discounts, and everybody wants a part of it now. So there has to be a limit where they can push it down to. So I don't think possibly they can push Bitcoin down anywhere near below 89,000, to be fairly honest. Again, we don't have the Clarity Act, so obviously the market is going to be following Bitcoin's footsteps, unfortunately. Hello, Time, my teacher told. I don't know what is happening on this one. Okay. Good evening, Miles and CMF, free and family. Good to see you. How you doing? All done by design. Yep. Hi, Miles and family. Good to see you, Alex. How you doing? SBI partners with Chainlink to improve digital asset transfers. This is a great partnership. SBI Digital Markets has partnered with Chainlink to use platforms technology to make it easier and safer to move digital assets across different financial systems. I don't know if anybody can hear the helicopter that's going around. If you can hear it, I'm sorry about that. SBI essentially, this is poised to improve the connection between traditional finance and decentralized finance. As this news spreads, Chainlink's price stayed steady above $14 mark, showing both market recovery and investor confidence. SBI Digital Markets, a part of Japan's SBI Group, has chosen Chainlink's cross-chain interoperability protocol, CCIP, as its main blockchain infrastructure. This move essentially will help connect regulated financial markets with blockchain networks, allowing smooth and secure token transfers. It also essentially shows SBI's growing trust in blockchain technology as a part of its digital financial strategy. UBS, also another global financial leader, has also used Chainlink's system for live blockchain deals. The bank completed its first transaction using the digital transfer agent. The transaction tokenized essentially a fund called UMint in partnership with essentially DigiFit, a licensed on-chain fund platform. Chainlink's presence in the blockchain would keep essentially growing. This comes out of essentially the Okoro network has continued to build trust among institutions through partnerships and compliance programs in Bermuda and Japan. In another major step, SBI Global has also partnered with Chainlink to bring stablecoin stability assessments on-chain. This partnership links traditional finance with DeFi, allowing blockchains to access reliable financial data safely. The partnership with SBI adds essentially to this progress, marking another major step in expanding blockchain using global finance. Additionally, Stellar, a blockchain payment platform, has partnered with Chainlink to also support DeFi growth and real-world assets in terms of the innovation they're bringing towards the table, towards their network. These projects show that the more financial firms and blockchain projects view essentially Chainlink as some sort of a reliable platform. On-chain reports also show that the coin is showing steady performance, and this comes at a relative strength index at essentially 38. Obviously, Chainlink is not going to be moving on the upside based on this news either, because the markets are still being slightly manipulated. Now, moving on from Chainlink's and SBI partnership announcement, which is a very good announcement. I mean, it's a great partnership to be having between Chainlink and SBI, to the Democrats. Before we talk about that, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there, and then we go straight into the next news. Hi, Miles. Always bad news from XRP. From always bad news. No, we have a lot of great news. It's just the market isn't reflecting that in terms of price action because of what's happening in terms of a government shutdown and everything else regarding, since we're in a government shutdown, we can't get a Clarity Act, we can't get ETFs passed unless they use that legal loophole. And then to add it on top, the Democrats decided to get Supreme Court, essentially judges, to go against Trump's tariff policies to undo everything we went through just for it to maybe happen again. But on the side of that, we have, incredibly brilliant good news in terms of banks, institutions, and even governments expanding even more inside the crypto space. But again, we can't see price action because of everything else that's stifling the market space right now. But as I said, think of it as an elastic band. They pull the markets back to crypto markets, and then when they let go, we're going to be flinging up. From XRP prices, evening, Miles and family. Susie, good to see you. How you doing? So, Democrats. Why are we talking about the Democrats? Well, because if anybody's heard of him, Zoran Mamdani has won as the mayor of New York. Why is this relevant towards the crypto space? Well, he is the mayor of New York, and Wall Street is a big play. And also, he hates billionaires, which is a very bad play. But here it is. Democrats achieved significant victories in the 2025 US elections, driven by voter concerns about economic affordability and discount essentially from previous Trump-era policies. Despite political shifts, cryptocurrency markets remain so far unaffected, with no immediate impact reported by crypto exchanges or industry leaders following the elections so far. The 2025 US elections saw Democrats achieve major victories nationwide, with the focus on affordability and opposition to previous economic policies, which is exactly what Zoran Mamdani ran on: affordability for the average American. And he promised everybody essentially free up to a set of free housing, free this, free that, and so on. And free buses, government-run stores. He hates billionaires. He wants to tax them even more. And let's not forget, Wall Street is, I mean, New York is one of the greatest cities on planet Earth, and it is pretty much the capital of Wall Street. And the last thing we want is someone like Zohran Mamdani running the show. Interestingly enough, Zohran Mamdani's whole policy was saving the average Americans, saving people money, making people money, and so on. And then on day one, instead of, you know, fixing maybe the free buses, he said to everybody, or essentially taxing the billionaires, or freezing rent in New York, or so on. And day one, Zohran Mamdani decided to ask for money. The man that ran on the idea of, you know, everything is free is now on day one asking the same people that voted for him for money. You know, this person reminds me of somebody. Zohran Mamdani, he reminds me of somebody. And the person he reminds me of is a man named Khomeini, which a long time ago, Khomeini came to the Iranian people around the 1970s, came to the Iranian people and said that he promised everybody free electricity, free gas, free housing, free food, free petrol, free water, and at the end of it, everything went 1,000 times more expensive. Remind you of someone? And you know, for 40 years, the Iranian people have been paying the price of that decision their ancestors made when they voted for Khomeini and removed the Shah, which was actually a very good life they were having under the Shah. But Khomeini came and promised everybody free everything. Why should you pay a single penny for gas, for food, for your house? It should all be free, is what Khomeini said. Now they're about 1,000 times more expensive in Iran. Same thing that Mamdani promised people, free everything. And then on day one, he's asking for money. The only thing I hope for is that he doesn't ruin, one, he doesn't ruin New York, and two, he stays away from Wall Street and the crypto market space. That's all I care about. I know all the promises he made were complete BS and none of them will ever come true. And the people that have voted for him are definitely going to feel the burn. And to me, this is surprising because a long time ago, 45 years ago, when the people of Iran made that decision, and we still see them as dumb for making that decision. But to make that dumb decision in 2025, when somebody's standing next to you as a politician saying free everything, and people are falling for it in 2025, that is just ridiculous in my opinion. And I've genuinely come to the conclusion that liberals who vote for these kinds of things are sharing a brain cell now. They're literally, to me, it looks like they're sharing one brain cell between them right now. To be voting for someone like that in 2025, promising free everything, as if anything in life is free. So honestly, I only hope that he doesn't ruin New York, and two, he stays away from Wall Street and the crypto market space. Do whatever else you want. Industry experts note that the election results primarily affect traditional macroeconomic policies without essentially immediate influence on cryptocurrency markets. Key political leaders emphasize the affordability issues, leaving the market response unhinged. The 2025 elections did not produce notable financial or regulatory shifts for the crypto space. Yes, they did. This is what Democrats are saying right now to people, that, you know, Trump achieved nothing for the crypto space or for the financial space. The reason why we saw Bitcoin at an all-time high was because of Trump. The reason why we got a Stablecoin Act passed was because of Trump. The reason why Gary Gensler left the SEC was because of Trump. The reason why the OCC became essentially pro-crypto was because of Trump. FDIC pro-crypto because of Trump. CFTC pro-crypto because of Trump. The list goes on of what he's achieved so far for the financial market space. But again, you know, Democrats, it's just the truth just doesn't matter to them in any sort of a way. La la land is what they, you know, tend to go towards. Past U.S. elections, like the 2018 Democratic wave led by essential racist Cortez, showed limited immediate market changes. The current results echo similar patterns with no direct DeFi movements so far. And that's all we care about. That so far, with this moron, Zohran, winning essentially the New York mayor, and any other Democrats so far that have won some sort of mayoral positions, that they just stay away from the crypto market space. Just stay away from it, because we already have too much on our plates. We already have the government shutdown because Democrats won't vote to open the government essentially back up. We already have the economic situations going on around the world, the political situations going around the world. The last thing we need is an idiot who just won as the mayor of New York to put his hands into Wall Street or the crypto space. So Zoran, just please, for the love of God, stay away from the crypto market space and stay away from essentially Wall Street. And that's honestly we care about, because so far the crypto markets haven't been affected, and I want to continue down that path. Now, moving on from that to Bitcoin.com. Bitcoin.com is now going to be doing age verification, which might surprise Bitcoin essentially wallet holders, because the whole idea of Bitcoin was you're anonymous. It seems that that is going to be coming to an end slowly for some or all. So Concordium teams up with Bitcoin.com for age verification service, coming to 75 million wallets. Cryptocurrency company Bitcoin.com has announced a partnership with public blockchain platform Concordium. The partnership will see the integration of Concordium's essentially one-click verify and pay service into Bitcoin.com's wallets. As a part of the agreement, the Concordium's identity first blockchain and native CCD token will be available to essentially Bitcoin.com. This will permit over 75 million Bitcoin.com wallet users to access and pay for services requiring private data like age or location through a single secure payment. The service uses zero-knowledge proofs, ZKPs, which are very popular right now inside the crypto space, to verify only the necessary information without disclosing user personal data. This feature provides merchants with the means to meet verification essentially requirements while preserving user identities. The integration also essentially allows age-verified payments with protocol-level tokens, ensuring compliance and privacy at the protocol level. Many vendor essentially offerings, including gaming, entertainment, and premium online events, necessitate in terms of identity verification. Traditional finance essentially methods often require excessive personal data for verifying the legalities of a payment, such as essentially users' full address, phone number, or photo identification. Services like Concordium's one-click verify and pay enable users to reveal the necessary information via a secure blockchain transaction, eliminating the need for extra data to verify the payment. As cryptocurrency services continue to infiltrate the mainstream and traditional financial institutions and adopt digital assets like stablecoins and real-world asset tokens, the demand for blockchain-based verification services has increased. Analysts also estimate that approximately 27% of internet users in the US have a crypto wallet, with South Korea, Singapore, and Brazil also above 20% marker as well. This suggests that a significant portion of global web users are positioned to make online payments via crypto, essentially assets. So 75 million Bitcoin wallets are going to be getting age verification, some sort of an identity in terms of, attached to their wallets. It's going to be private, but some sort of an identity is going to be attached to their wallets, which it's odd, because the whole campaign of Bitcoin was you're anonymous. So the idea of adding age verification, even if it is through ZK proofs, which is brilliant, but even if it is through ZK proofs, it just defeats the whole purpose of anonymous. Now, and makes it more essentially not fully centralized, but a glimpse of centralization. Now, JP Morgan is who we're going to talk about next. JP Morgan's analysts keep on moving essentially up and down in terms of what price they think Bitcoin is going to be reaching, because too many things are happening this year. And JP Morgan's analysts now project for Bitcoin to hit $170,000. JP Morgan's analyst, led by Nicholas, which everybody is very familiar with on this live show, predicts that Bitcoin could reach $170,000 within 6 to 12 months due to the normalization in terms of post movements and favorable gold footsteps. Such essentially projections highlight significant market dynamics influencing Bitcoin's valuation and potentially impacting investor strategy and market sentiments in crypto evolving landscapes. JP Morgan's analysts forecast that Bitcoin could surge to $170,000 within 6 to 12 months. The prediction attributes to potential growth to normalization of leverage in Bitcoin's derivatives following a notable market correction and futures liquidation. The analysis led by Nicholas emphasizes Bitcoin's favorable comparison to gold as an on-risk, essentially as a risk-adjusted basic. Additionally, Eric also from Bloomberg highlighted that this projection stressing JP Morgan's view that Bitcoin remains historically undervalued versus gold. Normalization after a major essentially event and a favorable comparison to gold, a risk-adjusted basic, suggests a significant potential upside for Bitcoin, is what Nicholas essentially said. Now, the prediction comes after a significant leverage reduction in Bitcoin's markets, initially triggered by the futures liquidation contracts. Stabilization and a modest ETF outflows indicate a return to confidence, contrasting with heavy inflows recorded in October 2025. The financial implications extend beyond Bitcoin, with Ethereum also experiencing less severe derivatives market impacts. Now, I'm going to tell you more about that a little bit later on tonight's live regarding what's actually happening in terms of the futures contracts, where less liquidity is actually entering or less contracts being made in terms of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and where are they actually going towards next. On-chain data also shows that the ratio of open interest in Bitcoin futures to market capitalization has normalized, affirming that leverage essentially concerns or essentially receding. Analysts suggest that the current market conditions mirror past cycles when similar risk-adjusted valuations against gold led to notable essentially Bitcoin rallies. An associated DeFi hack, a notably essentially affecting balancer, contributed to previous market stress but has since subsidized. While direct regulatory responses are absent, market analysis also focuses on systematic trends rather than specific essentially technological advancements or protocols developments, and long-term forecasts hinge on microeconomic factors and absent significant developments in DeFi governance or altcoin sectors. To add on top of that, in terms of Nicholas suggesting where Bitcoin is going to be headed in 6 to 12 months, essentially $170,000 and so on. To add on top of that, MicroStrategy chairman essentially of MicroStrategy's chairman, Michael Saylor, has once again made headlines, essentially with his latest pro-Bitcoin statement, declaring that Bitcoin is on sale. Now, I just want to point out one thing. To some investors, sure, it looks like Bitcoin is on sale. To the majority of investors, Bitcoin is definitely not on sale. But do you know what is on sale? XRP is on sale. XLM is on sale, HBAR is on sale, AVAX is on sale, Solana is on sale, Chainlink is on sale, Tons on sale, XDC is on sale. The list goes on. These types of crypto projects, to me, seem like they're on sale. But $100,000 Bitcoin is not really on sale. But the rest of crypto projects, they're definitely on sale. So if you are somebody that, is thinking about maybe tiptoeing, back into the crypto space, with whatever money, with whatever amount that you may have, or you just want a dollar cost average into them, these types of crypto projects, in my point of view, have a lot to promise in terms of utility, and also they're definitely on sale, but not Bitcoin. Minority investors might see Bitcoin as actually on sale. The majority of investors, it's better to go the other way. Known for essentially being one of Bitcoin's most vocal and essentially committed institutional backers, Saylor's remarks signal that he sees the current pullback as not as a cause for concern, but as a prime entry point for long-term believers. Again, if you have a few hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars laying around, sure, Bitcoin seems like, if you really want to go for it. Even if I had millions of dollars laying around, I still wouldn't touch Bitcoin. I would go towards more XRP or XLM or XDC or HBAR and so on. But it depends on the buyer, to be fair. It depends on the investor. Michael Saylor has consistently advocated for Bitcoin as a superior store of value, an alternative to fiat debasement. Under his leadership, MicroStrategy has acquired over 214,000 Bitcoins, making it essentially its largest corporate holder of Bitcoin. By calling this price range a sale, Saylor is essentially reaffirming his belief that Bitcoin's true value lies much higher and that the short-term dips are buying opportunities. I agree, the short-term dips that we're having right now in the market space are definitely buying opportunities for altcoins. Not exit signals. I agree 100%. These are not exit signals in any sort of way. The turbulence you're experiencing inside the crypto market space is pretty much right before a Clarity Act, which is the only thing we need to get the crypto space off the ground and go into utility. So this is definitely not an exit type of scenario. This is more like, either sit on the sidelines with your bags or tiptoe more inside the crypto market space. This essentially sentiment often resonates with retail and institutional investors alike, especially during volatile periods. 100%, I agree. Now, moving on from essentially Nicholas from JP Morgan and Michael Saylor to Charles Schwab's. More and more institutions are entering the crypto space. Another one has just decided to enter. Charles Schwab's to introduce Bitcoin trading by 2026. Charles Schwab's, the CEO, Rick, essentially confirms that the company will offer spot Bitcoin trading in the first half of 2026, impacting assets within its $11.59 trillion portfolio. This move broadens institutional cryptocurrency access, potentially boosting Bitcoin essentially market liquidity. Immediate reactions await further product rollout details. Also, Charles Schwab's, a prominent financial service firm, will introduce Bitcoin trading in 2026. The initiative is a part of Charles Schwab's broader vision to expand their wealth solutions into cryptocurrency offerings, which means they're starting with Bitcoin, expanding into other coins as well, and will eventually also include other cryptocurrencies, marking a substantial shift in their market approach. Before, Charles Schwab's didn't want to touch the crypto space. Now they're tiptoeing into the crypto space, starting with Bitcoin, expanding into other coins also. Charles Schwab's decision may essentially substantially affect the financial market landscape, potentially increasing volume for cryptocurrencies, influencing other sectors engaged in cryptocurrency investments also. It reflects a growing interest in digital asset sphere among major financial institutions. The shift also aligns essentially with broader market trends where large financial entities are essentially integrated in terms of digital assets into their services. Charles Schwab's expansion may influence institutional acceptance of essentially crypto businesses. More crypto institutions maybe enter essentially inside the crypto space because Charles Schwab is now entering the crypto space, affecting business strategies across the financial sector. The initiative, also channeled by Charles Schwab's wealth management strategies, could lead to the broader digital asset adoption. The expanding scope of cryptocurrencies and major financial firms indicates growth prospects, presenting new avenues for crypto-related products. With our upcoming crypto trading services, we are aligning our product offerings with evolving market demands and investor interest, said Rick, essentially the CEO of Charles Schwab's. Historically, similar actions led essentially by large brokerage firms have resulted in heightened market activity and liquidity inside the crypto market space. Charles Schwab's involvement could set another precedent, influencing regulatory approaches and technological innovations within the industry. This is the times essentially where, as I say, the crypto market is not done. It's just getting started. And for Clarity Act, we're going to be seeing utility. This is the reason why more institutions are essentially broadening their reach into the crypto space, even for the first time, like Charles Schwab's, with $11.7 essentially trillion portfolio. Now, the Genius Act is what we're going to talk about next on tonight's live. Before we talk about the Genius Act, let's go into the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there, and then we go straight into the Genius Act. As I previously, this is live, which means if you have any questions, put it down in the comment section. So let's see what's happening there. Evening, Miles and family. Susie, good to see you. How you doing, Susie? How you been? I'm down here with him. I have no idea how can he give free. He's making things up. That's how. Man, he's not. Zoran the moron. I agree 100%. Now, Genius Act dispute deepens as Coinbase clashes with 52 banks over stablecoin rules. Banks are still bitter because cryptocurrency companies are much more superior in terms of the technology they bring towards the table. The idea of having a bank account in a digital world seems absurd because, as I said previously, if you can make a wallet-to-wallet transaction internationally or domestically, what is the point of a bank account? If you're going to hold digital dollars, what's the point of a bank account? If you can send digital dollars and earn a yield on digital dollars, what is the point of a bank account? And then that's why 52 banks are essentially going up against Coinbase, or well, they're clashing together right now on the Genius Act. In a statement shared on X, essentially, the ABA said it was joining forces with state banking associations to urge the Treasury to uphold the Genius Act's ban on stablecoin interests. The banks are still not giving up. The idea that the retail section can earn a small amount of profit from their stablecoins is just angering the banks right now, because they know that everybody will slowly shift away to digital dollars and start earning yield on them, on their USDC, USDT, RLUSD, and so on. And then people come to the realization of, I don't really need the JP Morgan bank account. If I can just have a wallet, have digital dollars, and earn yield on them, because the bank isn't offering that. They could do, but they won't. So not only will the banks offer that to the retail section, but they have so much greed that they don't want you to even have that in terms of digital dollars still. So arguing that losing the rule could destabilize the financial system, that the banks would essentially feel the pain. The post essentially quickly gained traction, reflecting growing tension between traditional banks and crypto industry leaders over the future of dollar-backed digital assets. Just released, ABA and 52 state banking associations urged the Treasury to uphold the Genius Act's ban on stablecoin interests. Coinbase, meanwhile, has been pressing regulators to interpret the law more narrowly. The exchange insists that only stablecoin issuers should be restricted from paying interest, while platforms and wallet providers or third-party services should remain free to offer loyalty rewards and essentially other incentives. I agree 100%. Also, the banks, if they push too hard, people can earn yield in the DeFi space if they wanted to. Nobody could stop that. The company's policy chief, essentially Faryar Shahrzad, has warned that the overreaching regulations could weaken Americans' essentially competitive edge in the digital finance and slow the adoption of stablecoins as a modern payment solution. Coinbase has also asked that blockchain developers and validators be exempt from the compliance rules meant for financial institutions. We submitted Coinbase's response to the US Treasury request for comments on the implementation of the Genius Act. Our message is simple. Genius is a landmark legislation designed to make the US the undisputed global leader in crypto and stablecoins. To make that happen, the ABA's position aligns with the Banks Policy Institute, which previously urged that allowing any form of stablecoin interest could trigger a massive deposit outflow from the banking system, potentially exceeding $6 trillion. They contended that such programs would give crypto firms an unfair advantage by offering yield-bearing digital alternatives to traditional saving accounts. Now, what I'm interested more about is, fair enough, the banks, the majority of banks, 52 banks, are angry that the retail section is going to earn a little bit of money on top of their stablecoins for essentially the yield they're getting. The average American will earn a little bit of money. The higher the class, middle class, upper middle class, and so on, they earn a lot more depending on how much stablecoins they're holding. And let's just say the banks, the traditional banks, can't offer this service. They can't offer yield on their products because they're not connected to the blockchain space and so on. They're just a lot more traditional. JP Morgan has a blockchain platform. Now, I know that the blockchain platform, essentially Onyx, is completely private, but they could create a public one and offer yield on their stablecoins. They could do that. JP Morgan is, a $1 billion bank. I mean, they're one of the biggest banks, pretty much the biggest, or one of the biggest banks in the world. They could offer some sort of a yield-bearing service and create it on their public chain. They have a private chain. Why not create a public chain, offer this service? So then you don't have to go head-to-head with companies like Ripple or essentially Coinbase or so on, or Binance or Crypto.com or so on, in terms of the yield-bearing they're offering. And JP Morgan could offer this service. But no, instead, JP Morgan just wants to take that profit away from the average American. That's just the level of greed they're at. They can offer the same service, but they won't, because JP Morgan's very much into blockchain. Even though he hated the idea of blockchain, now they're very much into blockchain. They have their own private chain. They could just do a public chain and offer stablecoin yields, but they won't. Instead, you just want to shut it all down. The Genius Act signed into law in July 2025 was meant to establish a trust and stablecoins by requiring a full reserve banking, annual audits, and oversight essentially for foreign issuers. However, the law's enforcement, expected to begin in late 2026 or early 2027, has become a political flashpoint between Washington's regulatory bodies and the rapidly expanding crypto sector. Beyond the interest rate debate, Coinbase has proposed that payment stablecoins be recognized as cash equivalents for tax and accounting purposes. Arguing that they already essentially function like digital dollars, the exchange emphasized that essentially a heavy-handed approach could drive innovation offshore, leaving the US trailing behind, and regions like Europe and Asia in digital payment infrastructure. Is true, because no other essentially jurisdiction is trying to shut down yield services, yield on your stable coins. Even though once France had the most moronic idea ever, which was taxing people who hold cryptocurrencies even if they don't sell it. That was just stupid to begin with, and they never went through with it, thank God for that, for the French people at least. But in this essentially circumstance, they could offer it, but they won't offer it and just want to take it away from everybody else. Despite essentially the policy frictions, Coinbase remains in a strong essentially financial position. The company reported that third quarter 2025 revenue of essentially $1.86 billion, up 25% from the previous quarter, with net income reaching $433 million. Stablecoin related services alone generated $355 million, highlighting the growing importance of this segment to its business model. As both traditional banks, essentially, and crypto firms set up lobbying efforts, the Treasury's final decision on the Genius Act could shape how essentially digital dollars compete or coexist with the traditional banking system in the years ahead. This is why, even if you are a Ripple XRP hater inside the crypto space, it's so important for companies like Ripple to advance. You've just got to understand, even if you are an XRP hater or a Ripple hater or whatever, this is why it's so important for you just to understand the basics of who you're going up against. We want companies like Ripple to succeed, especially with their banking charter essentially, filing, and also their Fat Master account, or now the skinny account they're calling it, which Ripple said they actually love the idea about it. But this is why it's so important, because we want companies like Ripple to win, and companies like Ripple to get a banking charter license or a Fed Master account, because they will be offering services that's beneficial to people. They're not in it for the greed like the bankers are, where they're just angry at the fact that you could be earning a small percentage on your digital dollars. And sure, $6 trillion might exit essentially the banking sector and go towards crypto wallets. But whose fault is that? Is it the crypto companies that are bringing innovation towards the table, or is the bank's greed that's the issue? And the answer is the bankers' greed, because the crypto companies are only bringing innovation towards the table, whereas the bankers still won't let go of their greed. Now, NVIDIA is what we're going to talk about next. Moving on from bankers' greed to NVIDIA. Now, Michael Burry, everybody's heard of him. If you haven't heard of him, he's the guy from the film, essentially The Big Short. He's not the actual guy, essentially from the film Big Short, but it is based on him. And he's the guy that said 2008 market crash happening, and it did. Now, after that, he has had a few other predictions that didn't play out that well. But his biggest prediction that did play out extremely well was the 2008 crash. Why am I bringing this up? Well, because the world of AI is advancing pretty damn quick, rapidly, to be fairly honest. Michael Burry's put a bet down that the AI bubble is going to burst, and it's just going to tumble downwards. But here is so far what's happening in terms of AI. In the video, essentially, CEO Jensen claims China will now surpass the US in terms of AI race due to the US essentially export controls and China's subsidized energies. China is quite big on AI. The UK is moving towards AI. Canada's moving towards AI. Latin America is moving towards AI. The EU is actually getting tremendous amount of investments in terms of AI. So is Africa. There's a lot of countries in the continent of Africa getting huge investments in terms of their AI infrastructure or data centers, because it is a lot more cheaper to set up in their countries. In a recent interview, NVIDIA CEO essentially Jensen Huang expressed that China is going to win the AI race, a statement emphasizing the impact of US exports controls and China's ability to provide subsidized energy crucial for data centers. Jensen, who co-founded NVIDIA, has repeatedly criticized the US export restrictions, underscoring their adverse effects on American tech leadership. He retreated that China, described essentially as a nanosecond behind, will gain an advantage in the AI sectors. The immediate effects also essentially include a shift in market dynamics. With NVIDIA losing ground due to export sanctions, China is poised to enhance its AI and semiconductor production, significantly impacting industry stakeholders and possibly leading to realignments of market power. Financially, NVIDIA essentially may witness a decline in revenue as China invests in domestic firms. This could steal billions from Western technology, compelling essentially companies like NVIDIA to reassess their strategies in rising geopolitical tensions. Is this why Michael Burry essentially has put a bet down that the AI bubble is going to burst? The geopolitical landscape is altering with resource essentially allocation, redefining industry standards. Jensen's forecast signals that the potential for escalated technological competition. This may necessitate regulatory adjustments and drive innovation within the global chip market. Historical trends and tech independence could spark further investments in China and semiconductor industries. Experts also suggest a possible acceleration of global technological essentially with implications for global collaborations and economic independence. Now, tech stocks do affect the crypto market space. The idea that Bitcoin is the digital gold, the risk of asset, the safe haven, it tends to follow tech stocks also, which makes it not the digital gold or the risk of asset or essentially the safe haven that the titles is being given to. Those are just facts. If anybody wants to go and see them, Bitcoin does tend to follow tech stocks, even though it's called digital gold. And Michael Burry is now coming out and putting a massive bet down that the AI bubble is going to burst. That we're not going to be having the energy needed or the resources needed to get to the level we need to get to in the AI essentially sector, is what Jensen's saying, the CEO of NVIDIA. Also suggesting that China could take over the AI race would put a hamper essentially on American AI tech stocks. Everybody remembers what happened with DeepSeek, the AI project that came out of China, DeepSeek, that was built upon ChatGPT, that did the same job, but at a fraction of the cost, which then made essentially all the tech stocks in the United States completely plunge, which then Bitcoin followed in suit, and the rest of the crypto market space followed also Bitcoin's footsteps. And again, this is all due to not having a Clarity Act. Because we don't have utility, crypto projects are like buy, sell, they're just like stocks. But if we have clarity, we go to utility. That doesn't affect us anymore because we can decouple, which is what I've seen for the longest, what I've been saying for the longest time. But anyways, putting that to one side, this could be the reason why essentially Jensen is saying that the AI bubble might burst. He might be expecting a big punch coming, that China might overtake the AI race, because AI companies in China are aligned with the government, the Chinese government, because it's a communist country. And because it's a communist country, the government is, hand in hand in all these companies, which means they can fund them as much as they need to get them to where they need to be. Unlike the US companies, which essentially have to raise money from investors or on the stock exchange. Now, moving on to Ripple. But before we talk about Ripple, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there. So, we are at here. John says at swell, RLUSD was pushed into the spotlight, next up into the background. Do you agree? No, I don't agree whatsoever. I can't feel essentially with it. The narrative seems to be heavily about stable. No. What did Brad say? What did Brad tweet out? The CEO of Ripple. What did he tweet out? What was his tweet? XRP is at the heart of Ripple. So the idea that RLUSD is in the spotlight, even at the Ripple Swell event, but the idea that RLUSD is in the spotlight, XRP is being pushed to the side. What did Brad tweet out? Even though it's something that we know, due to PDF documentations, due to Ripple's footsteps, what did Brad, putting all that to one side, the PDF documentation, the licensing, and what the XRP ledger is going to achieve, putting that all to one side, what did Brad tweet out, the CEO of Ripple? XRP is at the heart of Ripple. That should tell you everything you need regarding is XRP being pushed to the sidelines and RLUSD taking spotlights. The answer is no. XRP is the spotlight. Now, happy Pisces, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? John, don't get sideswiped. Now, Ripple, on the topic of Ripple. Ripple's CTO demystifies XRP ledger's true value aimed muted price rallies. So, we always get extremely positive, great news for Ripple, but the price action isn't there. And I've said multiple times that is just essentially based on utility. We need regulations to see all those price movements happening. But David Schwartz decided to weigh in his opinion regarding the matter of price action in terms of all the positiveness that's coming out. So here it is. In an increasingly complex and often speculative cryptocurrency market, the distinction between a technology's fundamental value and its market price can be stark. Ripple's CTO, David Schwartz, offered a profound insight into the XRP ledger, clarifying its inherent utility and addressing why this robust technological foundation doesn't always translate into immediate price action or dramatic price rallies for XRP's token. His comments underscore a crucial philosophy divided essentially in terms of building for utility versus chasing short-term speculation. I said this a long time ago, Ripple is building a foundation. Once that foundation is done, set up with regulations, a Clarity Act, we're pretty much good to go, not overnight, but over time. As of November 2025, understanding this nuance is more critical than ever for investors and developers alike because we're at the heart of regulations right now. Even during a government shutdown, Democrats, Republicans, the Senate, they're all discussing the Clarity Act. David Schwartz emphasized that the true value of the XRP ledger lies in its unparalleled efficiency and essentially practical applications, particularly within the financial sector. Unlike many blockchains, the XRP ledger was purpose-built from day one to solve real-world problems related to speed, cost, and scalability in transactions. This utility-first approach positions the XRP ledger as a critical infrastructure layer for digital payments and asset tokenization and potentially central bank digital currencies, driving the adoption beyond more speculative interest. For Schwartz, the real value is found in the network's ability to facilitate essentially efficiently, cheaply, and reliable transfers of value globally. The operational efficiency, he argues, is what makes the XRP ledger unique for its institution and businesses looking into modernize their financial infrastructure. While XRP is integral to the essentially ledger's operation, acting as a bridge currency and an anti-spam mechanism, its primary function within Ripple's ecosystem is to enable liquidity and efficient transfers, XRP's main purpose, not solely to acquire a speculative value. The CTO's perspective encourages a long-term view focusing on the network's effort and essentially compounding utility that arises from widespread adoption and essentially diverse use cases rather than day-to-day price movements. The disconnect between a technology's fundamental strength and its market price is essentially a common theme in crypto. David Schwartz's remarks implicitly essentially acknowledge that while XRP ledger's utility is growing, XRP's price subject to broader market forces include overall market sentiment. Bullish or bearish trends across the entire crypto market often dictate individual asset performance. Macroeconomic factors, global economic conditions, interest rates, and regulatory landscapes are significantly essentially impact investors' appetite for risk assets like cryptocurrencies. Speculative trading. A substantial portion of crypto trading is driven by short-term speculation, often detached from underlying fundamentals. And regulatory arbitrage. Despite essentially progress, lingering essentially regulatory questions in some jurisdictions can still create uncertainty for investors. These external pressures mean that even a highly functional and adopted essentially ledger like the XRP ledger and its native asset XRP may experience periods where price action doesn't immediately reflect its operational triumphs. Ripple's strategy, as essentially articulated by its leadership, is to continue building and fostering the XRP Ledger's ecosystem. This includes encouraging developer adoption, expanding partnerships with financial institutions, and exploring new use cases for asset tokenization and CBDC infrastructure. The accumulation of these such developments, rather than a singular event, is expected to gradually solidify XRP's long-term value. The focus is on creating a resilient, efficient, and globally interconnected financial system powered by the XRP ledger, where XRP serves as the vital component, which is what also Brad said, that XRP is at the heart of Ripple. David Short's candid explanation serves as a vital reminder that value in cryptocurrencies can be multifaceted. While investors naturally focus on price appreciation, the architects of foundational technologies like the XRP ledger prioritize utility, efficiency, and real-world problem solving. As the crypto market matures through November 2025 and beyond, understanding this distinction will be key to the substantial growth from fleeting speculative bubbles. The XRP ledger continues to build out its fundamental utility, laying the groundwork that in the long run may well translate into enduring market recognition. As I said for the longest time, nobody does it like Ripple does it. Ripple is not just, essentially acquiring as many licenses as they can, just like some other blockchain companies maybe out there, or partnering with as many companies as they can inside the financial sector, just like some other blockchain companies out there. They're also buying companies out, acquiring companies for billions of dollars to expand inside the financial sector. When Ripple saw that essentially they had to push and shove their way in, otherwise they can never get in, that's exactly what they did. They pushed and shoved their way in by acquiring the licenses that they needed on a global basis, by also essentially acquiring companies, by partnering with companies, essentially partnering with companies inside the banking sector, inside the financial sector, so they can get access to those accounts, to those massive client bases. Because that's the only way Ripple saw it, essentially push and shove your way in. Because you could tell the 52 banks that essentially are lining up with ABA to go against the Genius Act just because they're offering a little bit of yield on essentially wallets, stablecoin wallets, people that are holding stablecoins. The banks don't even want people to have that. You can tell the banks don't like the idea of newcomers in their financial space. So what do Ripple do? Push and shove their way in. And again, mentioning it one more time, from Brad's perspective, Ripple, XRP is the heart of whatever Ripple does. From David Short's perspective, CTO essentially Ripple Labs, or previously CTO of Ripple Labs, now a board member of Ripple Labs, of Ripple essentially, his perspective is don't look at price action, because that's not something you should be worried about. XRP is not a short-term project in any sort of way, it's a long-term project. You should be looking at the foundation they're building, not if it goes up by 5 to 10 cents. Who cares if it goes up by 5 to 10 cents? Because what we care about is that it has a strong foundation. We don't want to go through short-term bubbles of going up and then collapsing back down inside of XRP. We want a foundation, a strong foundation built on licensing and essentially regulatory movements and acquiring companies and licensings and a fat master account or a skinny account right now. That's what we want inside the XRP ledger, inside of Ripple. We don't want these short-term movements of, well, I'll give you an example, for example. So if Solana went through a bubble, they call it the meme coin frenzy bubble for price action, essentially. And it did. Solana went shooting up in terms of price action. But what happened after the meme coin season was done? It came right back down. And they're not the only ones. Now, Ripple could have taken that route as well. The XRP ledger could have taken that route, created a meme coin frenzy just to get liquidity in for short-term action, for short-term price action. But is that what we care about, short-term price action? No. We care about generational wealth. That's what we care about. We care about a strong foundation, not a few months of being on the high notes and coming back down. No, we want to stay on the high notes, not come back down again. So that's what David Short's essentially referring to when he says, stop looking at price action. And he knows that Ripple is doing big footsteps inside the financial sector, but the price isn't showing it. And he's saying, stop looking at the price, because we're still building the foundation. The regulations will come, the foundation will be ready, and then we'll see who has the last laugh. But if you want short-term action, there's a lot of crypto projects out there that will go up for a few months and come right back down. but we don't want to come down. Also, on that note, traders rotate into XRP as BTC and Ethereum open interest declines. Would you look at that one? As derivatives traders on Binance unwind positions and major cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and Ethereum, open interest data from especially from CryptoQuant reveals a shift into XRP. This signals that traders are now placing bets on XRP, even aimed the broader market correction. In a rotation, traders are now reducing their exposure to Bitcoin and Ethereum futures, while simultaneously accumulating bullish positions in XRP, indicating a shift towards the altcoin. Who saw that one coming? We did. Binance traders pile into XRP as BTC and ETH positions unwind. Traders are using these slight dips to add positions. The dips that were experienced inside the market space, traders are now shifting on Binance away from Bitcoin Ethereum and going into XRP, showing conviction that the contrasts sharply with the fear gripping BTC and ETH markets. Assets saw a minor pullback, essentially also. Analysts note that the traders appear to be using these slight dips to add new positions. This conviction in XRP's future contrast stands at a contrast to the fear and risk, essentially, gripping Bitcoin and Ethereum markets right now, demonstrating a bullish bet on XRP. This divergence shows a rotation in capital, suggesting that the trading community sees greater upside and potential in XRP compared to the leading cryptocurrencies, which are currently undergoing a period of deleveraging. The open interest accumulates on XRP aligns with the renowned speculation about spot XRP ETFs. There has been a discussion and even essentially a fee disclosure from firms like Bitwise, Grayscale, alongside Franklin Templeton for that XRP, and regarding their fees also. So we're getting closer and closer to an XRP ETF using a legal loophole during a government shutdown. Bloomberg's ETF analyst specialist James also wrote, they're looking to launch this month, essentially, in the file that was updated for the XRP ETF S1 with shortened 8A language. Looking for launch this month, from James. Another reason why XRP is also benefiting from a clearer regulatory context, i.e. Ripple, finally ended essentially that lawsuit that we saw for the longest time, giving the XRP regulatory essentially and going into a Clarity Act. The expectation is that spot ETF approvals would open the floodgates for institutional capital. A long-term bullish catalyst, traders piling into XRP futures now are essentially front-running this potential institutional adoption. If XRP OIs continue to rise while BTC and Ethereum OIs remain weak, it could signal a meaningful capital shift within the crypto landscape from large cap anchors and assets towards mid cap or even altcoins seeking next leg upside, essentially for XRP to be leading the way. Which is interesting because James from Bloomberg yesterday said essentially that he sees XRP as the next leg up, the one that everybody's going to follow, is what he said yesterday. And today we have essentially, news coming out of Binance in terms of their trading, essentially in terms of the traders' footsteps, that in terms of open interest, traders are moving away from Bitcoin, Ethereum, and shifting over to XRP. For traders, this might imply two tactical approaches: monitoring the OI spread between major tokens to detect early rotation and incorporating XRP-specific risk metrics, funding rates, essentially exchange flows, and regulatory updates into positioning decisions. The trend shows how derivative sentiments can serve as an indicator for market rotation. While OI in XRP is currently increasing, future OI essentially declines in Bitcoin and Ethereum, may reflect the risk-off sentiment across crypto more broadly, meaning that the rotation may not necessarily signal bullishness, but rather repositioning. So if you're essentially listening to this right now and you're going, well, I don't see it in XRP's price is not going up. What's all of this about? Essentially, the OI interest of Bitcoin and Ethereum essentially traders going into XRP. They're repositioning is what's happening, essentially. It's not essentially, it's not merely necessarily a signal for bullishness, but rather a repositioning, preparing for what's about to happen next. Furthermore, a past episode in mid-October saw XRP's total OI, essentially across exchanges, plunge from 2.9 billion essentially to 1 billion within 12 days, a 65% collapse, showing how quickly derivatives backdrops can also unwind. Lastly, even though accumulation signals such as exchange outflows are present, they do not carry essentially guaranteed price movements. It depends on broader liquidity, micro tailwinds, and network fundamentals. So, the day is finally slowly coming. The day that essentially XRP slowly, very slowly takes its crown back, you could say pretty much. Again, not overnight in any sort of a way. This is just the repositioning of open interest contracts from Bitcoin Ethereum to XRP, but it's a start. This also goes back on what Bitwise essentially said as well regarding the Ripple swell event that was going on, that they see XRP as the next catalyst, and they also see XRP as the project that's going to do the best in a regulated environment, essentially in the financial sector. That's coming from Bitwise, and they said this yesterday. They said that XRP essentially is going to do better in a regulated environment in the financial sector. And then James also said yesterday that they see XRP from Bloomberg ETF Specialist Analyst, that they see XRP as the next catalyst for the market space. And today we have news coming out of Binance that open interest traders are moving their open interest from out of Bitcoin Ethereum slowly into XRP. Seems like everything's lining up. On a cherry on top, David Schwartz and even Brad from Ripple, essentially, they came to the conclusion that a skinny account that the Fed is going to be offering could actually work out in their favor as well. The Fed, essentially, the skinny master accounts is going to be offering. On that note, that the tables are slowly turning, we have come to the endings of tonight's live. This was the CMF Live. It stands for Crypto Miles Family. This was episode 401 of the CMF Live. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards, for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Pretty much everything you should know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. The disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. Before we do go, let's go start a comment section. Today was a lot of news going on. Also, thank you so much to everybody who smashed the like buttons, who smashed the retweet buttons, and also subscribed or followed essentially me during this live. Welcome to the CMF. If you followed or subscribed to me during this live as well, thank you so much, and welcome to the CMF. If you haven't liked or retweeted CMF members, like and retweet. Thank you so much. Let's see where we're at inside the comment section before we do go. Thanks. Sometimes you just need to hear it. Let's go, John. No problem. Before 10 to 15 years ago in Turkey, banks were competing to give people higher rates. People retired at 45 years old. And the things could be for good, but things are unfortunately against humanity. I agree 100%. Nice live show, Miles. We learned so much about the crypto markets. We're looking to get a boost in XRP investments. Your analysis, 100% yes, based on what I also read out. Helps us to see clearly. Good night, my friend. It is always a pleasure to listen to your live show. Take care and see you next week. Carl, let's go. See you next week, same time as usual. Miles, Night Miles of CMF. Pablo, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Great live. Let's go, John. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, Miles and all CMF. Thank you for a great live and news. Let's go, JP. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thanks, Miles. Have a great night and see you tomorrow, same time. Artistic, see you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Good night, Miles and CMF. John, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thank you, Miles. Good night, all Stormy. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thanks, Miles. Thank you so much for another great evening. Things are looking good. Morning, moving forward. I agree 100%. Adi, let's go. See you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Great news. Thank you, Miles. Susie, see you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. I will be seeing everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual, 10 p.m. Long time onwards, for the next episode of CMF Live of episode 402. Episode 402 will be tomorrow. Good night, Miles and CMF. Great live. See you tomorrow. Free forever. Let's go. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. I'll see you great tomorrow, same timing as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you are around the world, CMF members. Good job as always, Miles. Have a good night. I will see you tomorrow. Carlos, see you tomorrow, sometimes usual as well. Great analysis, Miles. Let's go, Theo. See you tomorrow, sometimes usual as well. Good night, Miles, and thank you for a great night. Let's go, Funky. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. I'll see everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. Smash the like button, smash the retweet buttons, follow, subscribe if you already haven't. If you have, thank you so much, and welcome to the CMF. I'll see everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual, 10 p.m.